Every night, in a cramped Los Angeles kitchen, he stood ankle-deep in gray water, scrubbing away at endless stacks of plates that weren't his, food he could never afford to eat, and dreams that felt like they belonged to someone else. Miguel was an immigrant, quiet, hard-working, almost invisible. To the chefs and waiters rushing past him, he was just the dishwasher, a shadow at the edge of their world. But inside, he carried something fierce, a dream of one day walking into a place where the door said his name, not as an employee, but as the owner. And then, one night, a single accident shattered the fragile life he had built, forcing him into a decision that would change everything. This is the story of how a man who once scrubbed dishes for pennies built a chain of restaurants that now carries his name across Los Angeles. A story not just of food, but of grit, failure, and the hunger to be seen. Miguel had arrived in Los Angeles with little more than a backpack, a worn pair of shoes, and the faded photograph of his parents back in Mexico. The city was louder than he imagined, brighter, faster. English rolled off people's tongues like rapid-fire bullets. Miguel caught only fragments, piecing together meaning with guesswork and body language. The first job he could find was at a diner tucked between a laundromat and a liquor store, washing dishes 10 hours a day, sometimes 12. The work was brutal, but it was steady. Miguel kept his head down. He rarely spoke, afraid of saying the wrong word in broken English. His co-workers barely noticed him, except when they needed another stack of clean plates. But Miguel noticed everything. He watched the way the chef seasoned meat, the rhythm of the waiters calling orders, the smiles of customers biting into burgers, and late at night, when the restaurant was quiet, he would close his eyes and imagine a different sign above the door, one with his name. Still, dreams didn't pay rent. His tiny apartment smelled of bleach and fried onions. His shoes never fully dried from the constant water splashing in the sink, and some nights, his hands trembled so badly he could barely hold the sponge. Then came the night that changed it all. It was late. Orders were backed up. The chef barked demands. Waiters rushed in and out. Miguel, exhausted, lifted a heavy tray of plates. His wet hands slipped. Crash! The sound of shattering porcelain filled the kitchen. Everyone froze. The chef turned, his face red with fury. "Miguel! Out! You're done!" No explanation, no second chance. Just like that, he was fired. Standing outside in the cold night air, Miguel felt the sting of humiliation burn deeper than the chill. Plates could be replaced, but to him, it felt like the world had just confirmed what he secretly feared, that he was disposable, invisible, nothing more than a mistake. But sometimes, being thrown out is the only way forward. That night, walking home under the neon lights of Los Angeles, Miguel's despair transformed into something else. But Miguel noticed everything. He watched the way the chef seasoned meat, the rhythm of the waiters calling orders, the smiles of customers biting into burgers, and late at night, when the restaurant was quiet, he would close his eyes and imagine a different sign above the door, one with his name. Miguel didn't have savings. He didn't have fluent English. He didn't even have a plan, but he had an idea, and ideas, when paired with desperation, can be powerful. He remembered his mother's tacos back home, soft tortillas, smoky meat, flavors that made neighbors line up outside their small kitchen. Why not here? Los Angeles was full of taco trucks, but Miguel believed he could bring something different, something authentic, simple, straight from his childhood. The first step was terrifying. borrowing money. Friends warned him not to, but Miguel convinced a distant cousin to lend him just enough to buy an old, beat-up truck. Rust lined its edges, the brakes squealed, but it was his. Every day he woke before dawn. He marinated meats with recipes passed down from his family. He chopped onions until his fingers blistered. And when the truck opened on a quiet street corner, he waited. At first, business was slow. Some nights, he sold only 2 tacos. Other nights, none. He fought language barriers trying to explain his food. Customers looked skeptical. Miguel went home with barely enough to cover gas. Doubt clawed at him. Maybe the chef at the diner was right. Maybe he wasn't cut out for this. But then came a turning point. One night, a young woman stopped by. She ordered a single taco. She took a bite and froze. Her eyes widened. This tastes like my abuela's cooking," she whispered. She pulled out her phone, snapped a photo, and posted it online. By the next week, more people showed up. Then more. Miguel's tacos spread by word of mouth. Social media did what he could not. It gave his dream a voice. Still, success didn't come easy. The city inspectors harassed him for permits. Competitors parked nearby, trying to undercut his prices, and Miguel, working 18-hour days, felt his body breaking down. There were nights when he slept inside the truck, wrapped in a thin blanket, listening to the distant hum of traffic. Alone, exhausted, questioning everything. But every time he thought about quitting, he remembered the sting of those shattered plates and the voice that told him he was nothing. And he swore he'd never feel that way again. Step by step, dollar by dollar. The truck grew into a local legend. One evening, as Miguel handed a taco to a customer, he looked up and realized something. The line stretched down the block. People weren't just buying food. They were buying into his dream. And for the first time, Miguel didn't feel invisible. But the higher he climbed, the harder the challenges became. Miguel wanted more than a truck. He wanted a place where families could sit, laugh, and feel at home. A restaurant with walls, tables, and yes, a door with his name. Yet every bank he approached turned him away. No credit history, they said. Too risky. Months dragged on. His truck brought in steady income, but never enough to make the leap. Miguel began saving obsessively, living on bread and rice, patching his shoes with tape, refusing to buy anything unnecessary. After years of sacrifice, he scraped together enough for a down payment on a small, run-down storefront. The walls were cracked, the ceiling leaked, but to Miguel, it looked like possibility. He worked around the clock, painting, repairing, cooking, learning. He stumbled through contracts in broken English, relying on strangers to translate. He risked everything. The first restaurant opened with little fanfare. Just a hand-painted sign, Taqueria Miguel. The first week was slow. The second, busier. By the third, the restaurant was full. Families, workers, students, all drawn in by the smell of sizzling carne asada and the warmth of Miguel's quiet smile. But the real test came one night when a critic from a local paper stopped by. Miguel didn't know who he was at first. But the next morning, the headline read, "From dishwasher to dream maker, Miguel's tacos redefine authentic." Overnight, everything changed. Success, once distant, began to multiply. A second restaurant opened, then a third. Investors approached him, offering partnerships. Miguel's name spread across Los Angeles. But with growth came new fears. What if he lost the authenticity that made people love his food? What if expansion turned his dream into another faceless chain? Miguel made a choice. He would keep every recipe close to his heart. He would train every cook himself, sharing not just ingredients, but the story behind them. And he would never forget the sink, the plates, the humiliation that started it all. Years later, Miguel stood before the glowing sign of his newest restaurant. Sleek, modern, alive with music and laughter. He remembered to the boy who arrived in Los Angeles with nothing but a backpack. The dishwasher who once felt invisible. The man who nearly gave up after dropping a tray of plates. And now, his name lit up the night sky. What made Miguel's journey remarkable wasn't just tacos. It was the way he turned invisibility into presence, shame into hunger, and failure into fire. Every broken plate, every sleepless night, every setback had carved him into someone unbreakable. And as customers filled his restaurants, as families shared meals under his name, Miguel finally understood. He hadn't just built a business. He had built a legacy. So if you're listening to this, standing in your own version of a kitchen sink, tired, unseen, maybe even on the edge of giving up, remember Miguel, because sometimes the very moment you feel most invisible is the moment your future self is watching, waiting, whispering, "Don't quit now." Dreams aren't handed to us. They're washed, scrubbed, and fought for. One plate, one taco, one risk at a time. Miguel's story proves that failure isn't the end. It's just the spark that lights the stove. And if this story inspired you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe for more stories like this, because your journey might be the next one we tell.